Hi, my name is Nomalanga Mhlauli-Moses with SuccessfulBlackWoman.com. This is my good friend Shaquita Graham with LovingTheBlackMan.com. How are you doing today, Shaquita?
I'm doing great, Noma. How are you?
I'm doing great. Our topic today is about a short video clip that we saw by Umar Johnson getting interviewed. And I thought it was very interesting and it would make for an interesting conversation. So you have the clip and you can play the clip, right?
Sure.
It's only about 40 seconds, so
yeah,
you can watch it all the way through.
Love and nurture him. True love.
Can you start it, Shaquita? Can you start it from the beginning?
There are no second.
Sure, Noma.
Thanks.
So it is the job of the mother to understand that although you must love and nurture him, true love is to teach him that there are no second chances in this world. So from the time he's 2 and 3 years old, when he messes up, there should be a consequence. Teach him that for everything you do, there's a karmic response that follows. Spiritually, politically, economically, so forth and so on. Our mothers, to some extent, are contributing to the effeminization of Black boys because they're not providing them with the accountability, the responsibility, the structure, and the discipline, which is to say that a lot of our mothers are raising their sons to be the exact type of man that she herself would never marry.
Can I raise my hand like my grandma?
The opposite of your dream mate. You ask the mom, what type of man do you want? Now, why are none of those traits in your son? Which means that you're making him.
All right, stop it.
All right. I actually watched this before and I made myself some notes. And what stuck out to me was he said that I'm going to include you and I in it because he's collectively talking about Black women. He's saying that some Black women are not raising their sons to have accountability, responsibility, structure, and discipline. So what are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I have to say that I have a lot of love for Dr. Umar. I have every time I hear him speak, I rarely disagree with anything he has to say. So I love what he's doing in the community. And I mean, I hear what he's saying. I think as women, as Black women, we have to listen to what our men are saying and try to glean some advice and suggestions that we can apply. So he says our mothers to some extent are contributing to the effeminization of Black boys because they're not providing them with accountability, responsibility, structure, and discipline. And there's so many people, Black men and some Black women, who are saying that the Black women don't have accountability, responsibility, structure, and discipline. So that kind of goes back to the importance of having a family structure that includes a male to help bring some of that to the table if you don't have it. And even if you do have that male, really cultivating those things in yourself that you want to see in your own child.
Right. I think that what happens is some of these conversations deteriorate to finger pointing at women who are single Black women who have kids. And of course, that's not what you and I are doing. So one of the things that I've thought about is how do you, if the father is absent from the home, make sure that a young man grows up with these qualities. And the one thing that I can say about a lot of not a lot, but the strong Black men that I know who didn't have their father in their home all the time that they were growing up, talk about uncles, cousins, older brothers, and sometimes even coaches at school who were able to cultivate those things in them, even though their father was either, not there all the time or was not there at all. And it again comes back to the mother, if she's by herself, to make sure that she cultivates those relationships with strong Black men so that they can pour into her son. And again, it's not going to just happen automatically. It's something that you have to actually be very proactive about. On a slight segue, I think one of the things that I can share is, I grew up with my mom and dad. My parents have been married for 42 years this year. But my father shared with my husband and I that one of the things that he did to build solid children was he he exposed us not just to himself and my mother. He exposed us to his siblings, to my mother's siblings, and to other people who he admired. And now that I think about it, when I was growing up, most of the time in the holidays, we were sent somewhere to some relative to spend a week or two, sometimes three, sometimes the whole holiday with them. So we experienced different perspectives, and we experienced different ways of discipline. We experienced things that we may not have experienced in our own household, because my parents, even though I think they're great people, they're not perfect, and there were holes maybe in their knowledge and ability, and they filled those holes with other people who they admired and who they trusted to pour into us and build us into strong human beings.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with what you're saying too about the finger pointing, because even the way Dr. Umar brought that across, he had a compassion, and I think he was sharing something that he felt was vital for the Black community, because he, from his heart of wanting to see us succeed. So not only do we need to come up with solutions like those that you laid out, and I've seen family members who have had to bring children into their home, which of course they wouldn't have a father, and surround them with coaches and things. Dr. Boyce and Dr. Umar serve as examples for young Black men as well online, you know, giving them some guidance. But I think too that we do have to try to come up with solutions by looking at ourselves and being honest with where we are. And I've been hearing a lot of Black men say that, well, Black women are not being accountable. They're not being responsible. They don't have a structured or disciplined lifestyle. And I think that there's some truth to that on both sides of the table, not to point fingers, but to say, okay, this is where we are. Let's move from this place. And how do we move from this place? We have to start with us many times. We have to start with ourselves. It's great to reach out to other people, but you have to start with yourself. And I read this on a blog. It was a Truth Angel. She said, children learn a lot from their parents. And one of the things they learn is how to love one another. If a Black child does not see his own mother being loved, cherished, and provided for, but he sees his mother alone and abandoned, this becomes the paradigm of how he will view Black women in general.
Right.
So, you know, we have to start at home sometimes.
That is true. You know, our parents set the expectation, good or bad, in our minds of what we should expect down the line in terms of the relationships that we enter and how we're treated and how we treat other people. The other thing that I want to point out was the quote, a very prolific quote. He says, a lot of women are raising their sons to be the exact type of men that she herself would not want to marry. And the reason why this stood out to me is that I notice a lot of back and forth between men and women, where, you know, men blame women, women blame men, and so on. But again, to bring it back to accountability, I generally don't point fingers to Black men and say that they failed or that they're a failure and so forth, because I recognize that those Black men are raised by Black women just like me, just like my mother-in-law, and so on, women that I love and respect. So again, it goes back to the accountability factor of, you know, before you open your mouth and point fingers at somebody or their inability to have raised a good boy or what turns into a man, look at yourself and what are you doing? What decisions are you making now, right now, you know, to create that or not create it. And that's something I think is very valid.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, in the Black community, we find ourselves at a certain place, and it's not about squabbling with each other, which we're going to do a whole segment about Black male and female relationships, but it's about saying, okay, we are here. I'm willing to own up to my part. You're willing to own up to your part. Let's go ahead and dig in and make this thing better. And one of the ways to do that is using marriage, family, structured households, discipline for our children, because we have to, at some point, get a grip on everything we're losing as a result of the war that we're fighting. And we have to get each other's backs, and we have to say, okay, this is what I'm going to do. This is what you're going to do. And we just need to do those things. So it's not about hating on one another, which I'm sure we'll see in the comments how people take this as an opportunity to hate on Black women and hate on Black men. And it's really, I mean, considering what has happened, the fact that we're still on the planet says a lot about us. So, you know, it's definitely not, you know, that's not the topic here. It's just about how to bring solutions to a situation that we find ourselves in as a result of all of the hell we've been going through.
Absolutely. You know, two things stood out to me as you were talking and as we're having this conversation is the two things that we really need to move forward. And those two things are maturity and discipline. It takes a high level of maturity, you know, say you have a child with somebody and the relationship doesn't work out, which sometimes does happen. It takes a very high level of maturity to understand that at the time that you met that person, you saw some good qualities in them and you would want them to instill those good qualities in your child. And it also takes a high level of maturity for that person to, even though they've moved on with their life, to go back and take responsibility for their child and the raising of that child. It takes a high level of maturity even when you're married and you're together to be role models to your children. You know, we never want to pretend that being married means that it's great all the time. Some people are married and it's horrible in there and the kids are still seeing ugly things. So it does take a high level of discipline and a high level of maturity to model for your kids, whatever your situation is, what you want them to be. And I think that's what Umar Johnson is saying. Let me say Dr. Umar Johnson and give him his appropriate respect. He's saying that a lot of women raise boys and they don't give it enough time and attention so that those boys turn out to be the very, very people that they wanted to get away from or they would never want to have anything to do with. So it does require, again, reiterate, a high level of maturity and discipline to say, you know, let me look at my situation. Here I am trying to raise this boy. Not to say that we're not concerned about girls, but that's not the topic right now. Here I am raising a young man. What are my inadequacies? What am I missing? And how can I fill those? How can I make sure that this turns out to be a model young man or a model man who will marry, who will be responsible, who will also raise respectable people? And that takes, again, a very high level of maturity. Not everybody wants to look at themselves and what they're doing wrong and how they're failing. Most people would rather just kind of stumble along and then be done with it, and then down the line there's problems and they turn around and say, I don't know what happened. I don't know why he turned out.
I mean, and yeah, I think, you know, I've been through different things in my relationships in my life, and I think the most powerful thing I've ever done is own up to my own mess, basically, and decide, look, you know, I am at fault here. Yes, that person, they did some things, but let me just start with myself. Let me just, you know, take inventory of myself. And I think as Black women, we really could do ourselves a service by, you know, taking that perspective right now, because I think we have a great opportunity where everybody is starting to see that, look, we need to work on solutions. And the best way for a team to work on solutions is everybody focus on themselves. And then as a team, we will all grow. So that's pretty much all I would have to say about that right now, because like you said, we can go on and on and on about this topic.
I'm glad that you brought that up, that we could go on and on about this. I think I've spoken about it before in one of our videos, and I will speak it again. I'll speak about it again, that Shaquita and I are launching a new platform that's designed specifically for these kinds of conversations. It's called Married Women's Business. You don't always have to be married. You don't always have to be a mother, but we do encourage you, if you're a Black woman, to be in business and building multiple streams of income. But again, it's a place for women to get resources, to get information, and to have these kinds of conversations. So we'll be updating you on when we're launching, how you can get information about or rather how you can give us your information so we could tell you when we're launching. Did you want to add something, Shaquita?
No, just look in the info box and you'll be able to connect with us. We definitely are looking for a platform where it's more focused, where we have people who are really concerned and serious about the things that we're dealing with, whether it's business, family, marriage, whatever it is. And we can kind of eliminate some of these other conversations that we see in the comments by having, a members only private virtual destination. So I'm excited about that.
Right. And I'm glad you said that too. We're trying to keep it positive. We're trying to keep it uplifting, and we're trying to move forward and with solutions and again, resources and tools to do better and be better. So I want to say thank you to our viewers for taking time to listen to us talk. And I want to say thank you to Shaquita, always a great conversation partner. Thank you, Shaquita. Again, this is Shaquita Graham with lovingtheblackman.com. She's also the founder of ateco.com. Thank you for watching.
Thank you for watching.